The truth about intervals. How's it going, guys? Julian Bradley here. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Ear Training. So in this episode, I just want to debunk the most commonly held misconception myth when it comes to ear training. That myth is regarding intervals. A lot of teachers will tell you that you have to learn all 12 intervals to play music by ear, and they'll also tell you that to learn intervals by ear, you have to associate every single interval with a different melody. And then when you're listening to the music, you have to recall Happy Birthday or the Bridal March or all of these unrelated melodies to play music by ear. So the truth is, no one who plays music by ear uses this method. I don't use this method, I never did use this method. None of my friends who play music by ear use this method. Yet this method gets taught and it gets repeated and it gets passed on, and it just bears no resemblance to how playing music by ear actually works. So the term musical association refers to this method of using nursery rhymes and the Happy Birthday theme to remember intervals. Now this method works for one thing only, and that is for passing a very basic ear training exam, where an examiner will play a note on the piano and they'll ask you to sing a fourth. You can recall the Bridal March melody. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Or perhaps they do it the other way around, they play a fourth and they ask you what interval it is, and you try out the different intervals that you've learned. Da-dum, da-dum, da-da-da-dum. Happy Birthday, does it match? No. The Bridal March theme, does it match? Yes. So you can figure out that it's a fourth that way, and yes, it will help you pass a very basic ear training exam. However, it's a very different thing to play a single interval in isolation outside any musical context, just a single interval on its own. That is a very different thing to actually listening to real music like this. When you're listening to real music, it's very hard to conjure up in your mind the sound of these melodies, to think of Happy Birthday, to think of Green Sleeves, to think of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's very hard to do, and it's very unnatural to do, and it actually ruins the listening experience if you're trying to force yourself out of the piece of music that you're listening to and trying to recall Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So to summarize, I don't think musical association works. I have never met a professional musician who sings nursery rhymes to recall intervals, and the method that I have noticed professional musicians use is the stepping stone method. That's what I use. So the method that I use to identify intervals by ear is what I call the stepping stone method. So whoever said that you only have to use the two notes of the interval to figure out the interval? Why not get a bit resourceful and creative and just sing a root between those two notes? So instead of singing da, 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 and in this case I realise that I'm singing up a minor triad, and I know that the interval distance of a minor chord is a fifth. So I'm singing up a minor third and then a major third, and I can add those two together and I can calculate that this interval is a fifth. Da, 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 da. Or I could have chosen a different interval path. I could have sung a major chord. Da, da, da. Or I could have used multiple notes. Da, 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 da. And I could have used all sorts of different interval paths to make my way to the bigger interval. Da, 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 da. mean, I could even just sing up the scale. Da, 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 da. So here are some common stepping stone routes that I use every day when I'm transcribing. Half step and whole step, there isn't a stepping stone, these are just the smallest two intervals. And I suggest that you just learn these. I would suggest that you don't even bother trying to use happy birthday. I would just focus on learning the sound of the whole step and learning the sound of the half step. I just practice singing the half step, which is probably the smallest interval you can sing. Da, 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 da. Well, for me, the smallest interval I can imagine is the half step. So if I sing up the smallest interval I can imagine, it results in singing a half step. And then for the whole step, I'll just sing up a note. And anytime I tell myself to just sing up a note, it always comes out as a whole step. Da-dum-dum. And the whole step is probably the most natural of all intervals to sing. We've been singing whole steps for as long as we've been singing. But for the minor third, I will sing a whole step and a half step. So da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. Next up, the major third, I will sing two whole steps. Da, 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 da. For the fourth, I will sing a minor third and a whole step. Da, 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 da. And then for the fifth, I will sing a minor triad. Da, 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 da. And really that sums up everything I do when I identify intervals. So first of all, let me simplify intervals. First of all, you don't have to learn all 12 intervals by ear. The truth is that most melodies only use 6 intervals. I mean, for example, when was the last time you heard a melody that played a major 7th? Or a minor 7th? Or even a major 6th? Or a minor 6th? It's very rare to hear these bigger intervals, and in fact most melodies never jump beyond a 5th in a single leap. So usually this is going to be the biggest interval that you hear in a melody, and that basically leaves us with the intervals a 5th and smaller, excluding the tritone. Because this interval is also very rarely used. And yes, there are a few songs which do use the tritone. There's the West Side Story theme, which made a feature of the tritone. But apart from a handful of songs which do use the tritone, it is very rare to hear the tritone in a melody. And again, the reason is that it's very hard for humans to sing, and ultimately composers want musicians to be able to sing their music back. That's how songs get popular. So for that reason, most composers avoid using the bigger intervals and the tritone. And that leaves us with just 6 intervals, which are the half step, the whole step, the minor third, the major third, and then the fourth and the fifth. And to play most music by ear, you only have to learn the sound of these 6 intervals. And the truth is that when you master these smaller intervals, you can actually use these intervals to identify the bigger intervals, because you just sing a combination of the smaller intervals. So for a minor 6, you could get creative, sing up a 5th or sing up a minor chord, da 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 da, and then add a half step, da 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 da. Same for the major 6, da 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 da, just add a whole step. For a minor 7th, you could just sing up a minor 7 chord, da 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 da, and the same goes for any interval. Now you might be wondering, well, okay, that's for ascending intervals. Do I have to also learn these 6 intervals descending as well? Well, in the long run, I do suggest that you learn intervals descending as well, because it will help with your improvisation and when you want to compose. It helps that you can sing descending intervals. Now you can use the stepping stone method for descending intervals as well, like this. Da 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 dum, da da dum. However, when it comes to just transcribing songs by ear, you actually don't have to identify descending intervals. Because if you do hear a descending interval, like this for example, well, you can just turn these 2 notes backwards and sing them the other way around. So you go like this. Da 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 dum, da 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 da, da 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 da, and then I can figure out that it's a 4th. So if you don't want to identify descending intervals, well, you don't actually have to. You can always just do this trick of thinking of them backwards the other way so that you figure it out as an ascending interval instead. So, homework assignment. This week, I want you to focus on 1 interval a day, and I want you to practice singing these intervals away from your instrument, and to decide on a time of day that you're going to do this. A ritual could be every time you park your car, spend 30 seconds singing. Could be when you wash your hands, could be when you brush your teeth. These can be the places that you practice singing intervals. You don't have to practice it for long, just 30 seconds is fine. But then to do that several times throughout the day. So that's it for this episode of Everyday Ear Training. I hope this one helped you. If you have a question about ear training, please post it in the comments below. Your questions are going to feed the next video and the next video. So let me know your questions below. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. So that's it for this one, and I'll see you next time. And if you'd like more information on ear training, you can go to themusicalear.com. It's my website. There's a ton of free information. You can go through my free video series on ear training, which shows you how to practice ear training the right way and how not to practice ear training. You can also sign up for ear training email tips from me. These will be weekly emails which challenge you to transcribe songs by ear. And of course, if you'd like to take my complete flagship course in ear training, which is the Musical Ear course, you can sign up for the waitlist at themusicalear.com, and I'll notify you by email when I next open enrollment. So that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next session of Everyday Ear Training.